Welcome to Retro Groove. Enjoy your voyage. Retro Groove. Retro Groove. Retro Groove. Retro
Groove. Howdy, welcome to Retro Groove. I'm Adam C.
And I'm Liam D.
And this is a podcast where we talk about music that stands the test of time, the albums and artists that have shaped and reshaped the sonic landscape, as well as covering new music from those artists. Welcome to episode 18 of Retro Groove. Liam, how you doing?
I'm all right. A little worn out. Work's been a little crazy. Life's been a little crazy, but yeah. I feel like I'm seeing light at the end of the tunnel, so that's good. Looking forward to chatting and hanging for a little bit, so that's always fun.
Definitely. And I'm just getting over being pretty under the weather for close to a week, which always stinks. However, it did allow for some downtime, which usually means a lot of video games for me. So it's not all bad.
You feel up for playing video games when you're sick?
Typically.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like, it was probably really bad allergies or a cold or something like that. Most likely not COVID. Nobody else in my house got sick. Of course, it was just me. Right. So, as long as I'm not like, hugging the toilet or anything, I'm totally like ready to just lay down and play games to keep be distracted, keep my mind off of feeling terrible. Yeah. So lots of video games.
Yeah, my problem is usually I get head stuff like sinus or whatever. And so I always am laying there sick and I want to play a video game. I want to read a book that I've been meaning to read. And neither of them, like my eyes just won't allow that to happen. And so
to keep your eyes open.
I feel like I'm like locked in my body where I'm like, I'm blowing it.
Yeah, if you got a headache or anything like that, it's hard.
What are you supposed to do?
It's hard to want to focus on a screen, that's for sure.
Or podcast with a voice like that, right?
Yeah, so we're a little bit delayed, but we'll still get it out in time. Yeah. And so Liam had the idea to cover the Bay Area punk subgenre, which is something I'm a little bit familiar with, but not something that I would consider myself well-versed in. So I'm always thrilled to cover a topic that I'm not very well knowledgeable on so that I can, find some new rabbit holes to jump down and learn something new. So, and also it saves my voice a little bit right now, give you some of the brunt of the talking time here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I mean, again, I said in the last episode or two that my daughter and I have been listening to a little bit more of like the ska infused dance hall punk stuff, especially Rancid. And it just kind of reignited my appreciation for what Tim Armstrong has done and my history with this band. And then like some of the other artists that came out of that scene, and just like how a pocket group, a pocket community can really just explode if the right fuel is set in a place, and then you see the artists and like the creativity and the amazing stuff that can kind of come out of that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in Seattle in the 90s with the whole grunge scene. It was, and they were, those bands, they were all, friends and acquaintances and kind of played in each other's groups and stuff like that. So it can be a really powerful force when you have a number of bands all supporting each other and all encapsulating this same scene. So that's something that just creates it's not necessarily even a competition thing. It's just like, and I remember experiencing a similar effect in like the small group of bands, like when I was in high school and entering into college age in my local area. We wouldn't even play anywhere near similar styles of music, but we would all kind of bounce off of each other and cover each other's songs and kind of imitate each other a little bit. And it actually push us creatively. So I can see that like building off of, when you've got artists building off of each other, it can push limits and push boundaries and create some new and exciting stuff.
Well, you'll see that in what we talk about on the B-side for sure. That's definitely going to come into play. Because you were sick, did you get to buy anything, listen to anything? Have you been down for the count on that side?
I did venture out on Saturday morning when I started to feel a little bit better because Kendra Moore's new album came out on Friday. And I tried to order it online so I didn't have to go anywhere, but I really wanted that Coke bottle clear edition.
Oh,
and
man.
It was sold out. I just love that color. Like it's so cool and pretty to look at. Like I'm a big fan of Topo Chico for all you Texans out there. Topo Chico, where we basically bathe in Topo Chico, and the glass.
It's mineral water, right?
Yeah, it's mineral water and I know they say not to drink the water in Mexico, but it's Mexico mineral water. It's delicious. And really I don't know what there is about it, but because I was a huge San Pellegrino, being Italian, I was a big San Pellegrino fan growing up and, into early adulthood. But like once I went Topo Chico, San Pellegrino just didn't cut it anymore. So I'm 100%, Perrier doesn't cut it. None of the other mineral waters cut it. It's got to be Topo Chico. There's something about it. There's the whole mythos behind it where it's got some kind of medicinal properties. And I don't know if all that is true or not, but I sure prefer it over any other mineral water. But my point is the I don't know what it is, what kind of glass they're using, but it's got that kind of old style. It's not just clear glass. It's got that kind
hazy, greenish kind of.
Yeah, it got a bluish, green, slightly greenish tint to it. And this pressing of her album has that quality. And it looks, especially if you get some light behind it, it just looks amazing. And I'm not typically, sometimes I am, but most of the time I'm not a sucker for like the colored variant, but this one didn't really cost anything more. It was the same price. It was just kind of harder to come across. So I went to my local, they had a few copies in the Coke bottle. So I bought that. Shout out to Piranha Records. They're always good at hooking me up with what I'm looking for. And I love this album. So probably more than anything else, I've been listening to that, both in the car and, on vinyl. I've also been listening to the new Alt J record. I'm a fan of theirs. Their new album, The Dream, came out, and it sounds like an Alt J record. There's nothing terribly like innovative about it as far as their sound goes, but the songwriting is great. It's a really beautiful record. I'm really, really loving it. And then I got a huge surprise. Randomly, it was recommended to me on my Apple Music because I listened to their older stuff a lot, but Sahara Hot Nights, who hasn't put anything out since 2011, who I'm a huge fan of, they put out a single this past Friday called Reverie. And it's chill. It's a chill, their later stuff is more chill anyway, less kind of pop punk and more chill. And it's great though. Like I know it's just a single, but I'll literally just put it on repeat and listen to it 4 or 5 times in the car. It's a fantastic song.
So weird. I wonder if there's a new album or something coming.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet. I hope so. That would be amazing. But it's awesome to see a band that you love and was a big part of your kind of musical upbringing. All of a sudden come out with new music that in such a that when they haven't for such a long time. But that's really it. Because, I was down for the count for a good part of last week, but over the weekend I came back out into the sunlight and got to do that.
Nice.
What about you?
I was digging through the like new used arrivals section of my local store, Looney Tunes, and
I love that
um,
name.
it's so good. It I came across a copy of Dude Ranch by Blink 182. I have it on CD. I love that album. And they had $25 on it, which I was like, that's cool. You know, it's an album that's like, it's an iconic Blink 182 album. It makes sense. But I was like, I flipped it over and the labeling on it was grilled cheese records, not MCA or anything like that.
Oh,
And so I was like, "Oh, that's weird. Did they do a vinyl pressing when the album like the album was 97?" I was like, they weren't really putting albums like that out on vinyl a whole bunch back then, you know? Like that wasn't, you know, you had your regular vinyl run when in the heyday of vinyl, and then everything was CDs and even cassettes, and then vinyl I feel like didn't come back until I was in college, even like 2005, 2006, and even then you just couldn't count on there being a vinyl pressing of the albums you wanted. I was still buying CDs up until maybe even 10 years ago.
And the albums that did get pressed during that time are worth a lot now because they were pressed in very low numbers, and those are beloved albums. So,
so I hadn't really joined the Discogs world, admittedly. Like I felt the draw to it, but I look at my shelves and I'm like, am I ever really going to put all of that into Discogs?
It's hard.
Spoiler alert, I have started to put all that stuff into Discogs now.
Yes.
But like I had an account, so I jumped on there just to be like, what's the story here? And to your Coke bottle point, like going through Discogs is so confusing because every album has like 15 variants, and like each one has its own subset of prices and specifics, and like which label was this and which is a misprint. And I'm like, I can't go there.
It is a rabbit hole of rabbit holes.
Oh,
it is,
man.
It takes some time to really learn how to navigate it, to find what you're looking for and to weed out what you're not looking for. It's a great resource, but it's not like it's not the most user friendly platform.
Right.
You have to make
I feel like it's made by the people who edit Wikipedia, which I really I appreciate both for sure.
Yep.
But like I'm looking through this thing and I'm like, who wrote the barcode number on this? Somebody wrote this out. Like, what are you even doing? There was 5 of these printed and pressed, and you wrote the barcode number in here, which means you probably own one of those 5.
Yep.
But it's cool to have a community like that, and it's cool to have this app. And so I look at it and I'm like, the reprint from 5, 6, 10 years ago, whatever it was, is worth about 25, maybe even 30, you know, depending on the condition. But the original version, and like I cross-referenced again, somebody, wonderful person had written in the barcode onto this thing. And I'm double checking this and I'm like, this looks like what I was thinking. It's $120, $125 LP. And so like I snagged it. I'm kind of feeling like I need to go back to the store and be like, guys, I can't do this to you. Like I just bought something off of you that you should have turned an extra $100 profit on.
Sitting on gold here.
But for right now, it's just sitting on my shelf. I haven't decided what to do with it just yet. But it was a weird moment because I've had that in video games a bunch before, but it's rare that I have the subset of knowledge that you need to have in a situation where you're like, this label is this, and this came out here, and so it's probably worth more. And I had this weird moment of synergy between like looking at a weird Nintendo DS game and being like, this is definitely worth like twice what they're asking for it. And doing that with an LP and being like, this is definitely worth way more than they're asking for it. So, so that was cool. And then I picked up a copy of Herbie Hancock's Thrust, which I've been on a hunt for years. Like, again, I could probably find it on Discogs or eBay or whatever, but I've been looking in locals for a long time for a used copy, and it just doesn't really turn up. it was something that I was exposed to in college.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very fun, funky, easy album to listen to. And I had done this thing where like I was listening to Tribe Called Quest earlier in the week, and
Nice.
that sent me down a rabbit hole of like wanting to just listen to some funk and soul.
Yeah. Stuff
And
that
I
they
was like,
sample.
yeah. And then I was like, so I was listening to like some Stevie Wonder, and then I was like, man, I just like really want some funky keys. You know,
Yeah.
like this is like smooth, croony funk. Like this is love making funk. I want just jazzy funk.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you do those little like rabbit hole things where you're like, this makes me think of this. You get your
Yep.
degrees of separation. And
Love
so
it.
I was sitting there and I had a Herbie moment, and I was just like, I got to do it.
Awesome.
And then I watched the Elliott Smith documentary. I was like staying
Oh.
up late doing work, and I wanted something to put on, and it was streaming. It's still streaming probably up for free on Prime. And I know Elliott Smith's music. I know Heat Miser pretty well, and I hadn't I'm familiar with Elliott's music, and I knew beats of the story, but I never like sat and kind of lived within that space. And it's a little older than like it could feel it's just a few years older than my understanding or awareness of the music. But if I had been 5 or 6 years older, I
Right.
might have been more in tuned with all of this as it was unfolding.
Yeah.
And it's really sad to see. It's cool to see his kind of growth and his explosion, and then like the sad kind of collapse of his career at the end, where he's just like can't remember the lyrics and he's walking off stage, and then obviously his death. And
Man.
yeah, it's a beautiful documentary. I think it was an hour and a half long, and it was really well done with some interesting interviews. I just didn't know. I mean, the story, like if I say to you, how did Elliott Smith die? You say he stabbed himself in the heart, right? Like that's the thing that everybody always talks about. But like maybe it's too much watching like the ID, murder shows over the years and
Oh,
unsolved mysteries.
the
But
forensic files and stuff.
there's so much in there of how he might not have killed himself, and it might have been a murder. And it is a slippery slope there too, where I went down a Google rabbit hole that night. I should have been done by midnight and going to bed. And instead I stayed up till 1 a.m, just Googling like, so how do we know that this person didn't kill them? Because they got into a fight and like she threatened to kill him. And like, I don't know. It's a mess, dude.
The same thing happened to me when I watched the Soaked in Bleach, the Kurt Cobain documentary.
Yeah.
And whoa, some crazy stuff. So I feel that 100%.
Yeah. Should we play a name game? A little what's in a name?
Yeah, we can do that. Why don't we switch over to that? So for those of you that might not be familiar with our kind of new game that we've played for 2 or 3 episodes now, it's called What's in a Name. And what Liam and I are going to do is list for the other the legal name of an artist who uses a stage name, and we have to guess who this artist is. And then if we can't guess, there's subsequent hints, and we'll dock points for however many hints given. And it's loosey goosey, but we have a lot of fun, and we usually learn something or a thing or two as well. And I did avoid doing what I made the mistake of doing last episode, Liam. There are no actors that also happen to have a music career.
Oh man, Hollywood is not my scene.
No.
Yeah.
So sticking with the theme, our B-side is going to be focused on the Bay Area punk scene. So I tried to stick with that theme. And so most of these are either punk. So you get a freebie hint on all of these then.
Oh, okay.
So these artists are either, punk artists or, pretty close to that, genre.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to start with, I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, let's do it.
Michael John Burkett.
That is The owner of Records, which would be Fat Mike of NoFX and Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
It is Fat Mike.
Boom.
I had a feeling that you might probably know that one, so I put it up front.
Thank you.
Nice. So full on 25 points each. We're going to do 4 each, 25 points each. So a possible 100 points. Okay, next one. Roger Osborne.
Roger Osborne.
This one isn't necessarily full on punk.
Roger Osborne. Roger Osborne. Osborne would be the obvious last name, but I feel like that's too obvious. Because I don't know Ozzy's first name, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take the stab and say, is it Ozzy Osbourne?
Okay, so it is not Ozzy Osbourne.
Right. Okay.
This may venture a little away from the metal and a little bit more into the maybe grunge side of things a little bit.
Grunge. Okay. Okay.
That's a pretty decent hint, I think.
Yeah. What was the name again?
Roger
Osborne.
Okay. I mean, that was kind of a half hint. Yeah, this was basically a grunge group.
Mm-hmm. Well, you get your mother
heavily
Love Bones.
Influenced Kurt Cobain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Heavily influenced Kurt Cobain. I think I'm going to need another hint.
Let's see. So let me figure a good hint here. So they have some albums on Ipecac as well as Sub Pop. They're still going to this day. I think they actually put out a record last year. So they're still going and have been going since the early 80s.
Wow. Okay.
This individual is partially known for his unique hair.
Unique hair.
Yeah, he's got kind of a signature hair. You know how you could, like, if you saw a silhouette of like Robert Smith from The Cure, you would know it's him just by like his unique hair. You could probably guess who this is just based on the way their hair looks.
Okay. Man.
I believe he was in...
I know okay.
I believe he was also... Let me double check, but I think he was in Fantomas. Which was kind of a super group with Mike Patton, who we'll talk about later.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk about Mike Patton, yeah.
And yes, he was. He played guitar. He's a guitar player.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I don't know if I know this. Shoot.
I hate for you to take the goose egg.
I might have to take the goose egg. Is the last name Osborne? Like in the stage name, or first name is it Roger something, or is the name in the name at all?
Yes,
or not really.
So he kind of sort of has 2 stage names that are related, and one of them, Osborne, is full on the last name.
Okay. Oh, so so it's in there. Osborne is in it. Osborne, what? Osborne?
So completely unrelated to Ozzy Osbourne.
Right,
But Ozzy has 2 Z's in it.
Right.
And so does this person.
2 Z's. Buzz Osborne. Melvins. Got it. Okay.
Buzz Osborne also goes by King Buzzo.
King Buzzo. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Buzz Osborne. I mean, I don't know the Melvins very well, but I feel like the Kurt Cobain hint definitely helped. That was, I mean, obviously telling me the two Z's because I'm like, well, there's only so many.
Well, I didn't want you to take the goose egg.
No, I appreciate it. Give me 5 points for that one.
No, I'll give you 10 points.
Okay, cool.
I think that was like 3 or 4 hints. You're good. That was probably a tough one. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not well versed on my Melvins. You know, I don't know them so super well.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique kind of subset of early grunge that, you know, most people, it was kind of, you know, by the time grunge got big, you know, they were all listening to Nirvana and Soundgarden, and that you know, these were kind of the very early roots of that kind of sound. All right, so 10 points for that one.
Cool.
Because we got there. Okay, we're kind of going back to punk.
Okay.
Here, and this individual goes by John Graham Mellor, Mellor. Mellor.
John Graham Mellor. Is it John Doe from X?
It is not. That's a good guess, though. The stage name does not contain John.
Okay.
Or really any of the other parts of the name. So there's not really any association here. Maybe a tiny bit, but it's not John.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know this one then. I'll need a hint.
Okay. This individual was in a huge group that was kind of mainly active from the mid 70s to the early to maybe mid 80s.
Okay. Punk group, you said?
Punk group. Yeah, definitely a punk group.
Okay.
And they hail from across the pond.
Okay. As most punk groups from that era do.
Yeah, probably one of the most influential punk groups ever.
All right. Well, so we're going to talk about The Clash, right? We're going to talk about Sex Pistols. John, who's John? It's not Mick.
Nope.
John. I mean, is it Joe Strummer?
It is Joe Strummer.
Wow. Okay. So,
nice.
I mean, that helps. So the Clash thing definitely helps. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you 20 for that for sure.
Nice.
That was a good guess. Awesome.
Cool.
That was
Joe.
Strummer.
Why is he Joe?
I don't know. John Graham.
John Strummer sounds good to me.
John Strummer would work,
Joe?
right? Joe Strummer. I don't know. Joe is kind of a cool name back then.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, we're going to switch it up a little bit and go with a female artist who's not full-blown punk, but definitely has that attitude.
Okay.
And it's Patricia May Giraldo.
Patricia May Giraldo. Oh, that's because of Neil Giraldo. It's Pat Benatar.
It is Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's just, yeah. Because I know because Neil is Neil Giraldo.
Yeah. Oh, see, I almost, it's funny because I almost was like, well, are we going with like legal? Like because I almost threw the nay in there.
Right.
All
Right.
right. So no, that was great. So that's full on. Didn't even need a hint for that one.
Yeah.
So you are at a solid 80 points.
I think Joe Strummer, because I was just looking something up on him earlier. I feel like, did he put out a bunch of stuff on Hellcat? No, I'm just going to do a quick Google now.
Joe Strummer, were the Mescaleros on?
I think they were on Hellcat. Yeah, because that's Tim's label.
Sense. Nice.
That's Tim's label. And so I was like Googling around on some of the stuff that Hellcat's put out, because my first Hellcat album was a Dropkick Murphys album. There was a bunch of great albums that he put out on that, but I was like, the fact that he got to put out Joe Strummer albums is a pretty cool way to come back around to everything.
That's amazing.
Not to get into a B-side here.
No, I didn't even know that. So that's a cool little tie-in.
Yeah. All right. So all of mine do wind up kind of connecting pretty nicely again. So once you get into one, you'll know the kind of area that we're operating within. And I'll start hopefully with an easier one, although this one doesn't have any of the name in the actual name of the artist, but it is Joseph Simmons.
Joseph Simmons. Okay. Nothing immediately ringing a bell.
So Simmons is a big name
Right.
in music. It's a very famous Simmons.
Right. That's where my brain first went to, is Russell Simmons, but
Yep.
Russell Simmons is Russell Simmons.
Russell Simmons has a brother.
Oh.
His brother's a musician.
I didn't know that.
Yep. His brother was on his label.
Makes sense. But what is his stage name? I'm gonna need something else. That era of hip hop is not. I'm not super well versed in.
No, I got you. So first album put out by this group. He's part of a group.
Okay.
Group's name is in like the duo that is the group, although it's a trio because of the DJ, but it's a 2 MC duo. The group's names are in the actual, like the artists' names or the 2 MCs' names are in the actual group's names, like pioneers of hip hop.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I know that. So you're talking about Run DMC, clearly.
Correct.
So. Yeah. Is Russell Simmons'
50-50
brother?
Shot. You got a
Rev Run?
50-50 shot. It is Rev Run. Yeah.
I did not know. How did I not know that was Russell Simmons' brother?
Yep. Rev Run is his, I think it's his little brother. I'm looking to just
nuts.
make sure. But yeah.
How did that fact escape me?
Younger brother of Russell Simmons.
Because I'm a pretty big Run DMC fan. So I'm disappointed in myself for not knowing that factoid. So
I'll say, just as a whole, for all of this kind of stuff, we were playing a trivia game this weekend. It was a music trivia game. We had some family over.
Nice.
And everybody decided that what they would do is the 4 family members that were over would all pick trivia cards, and then I would pick one, and they had to collectively decide which one would stump me versus what I had. But I'll say, like, I am very not great at games like this. Like, everyone's playing Wordle. I can't do it. I can't pull things. Like, when I get put on the spot with something, my mind goes blank, dude. Jamie Foxx should have dawned on me. Like, there's so many things like that where it just
that was rough.
It falls out of my head. But if you give me like a bunch of pieces and you're like, fit this together in a puzzle,
absolutely.
I'm golden. But like drawing things out of the ether.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what makes the game fun, is when you have, like, we give some hints and you have to put the hints together.
Yeah.
All right. So I think you gave me 2 hints. I'm looking at.
Was that 15? No, I think it was just one. No, I think it was just one. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you got a really strong score with that 80, so I'm gonna struggle here.
Yeah.
All right. So is there a theme here?
Yeah. So now we're in the pool. So we're talking about Run DMC. So we are in that hip hop space. So the next one, Carlton Riddenhauer. And actually, let me see if I can. Let me give you the middle name, because I feel like that actually factors in here. I think so. Because here you go. Carlton Douglas Riddenhauer. So that helps a little bit more. Yeah.
So
Carlton Douglas Riddenhauer.
So I'm going to take a stab in the dark and go with Dougie Fresh.
No, okay. But that is a good guess.
Okay.
No, there's actually like the first and middle name come into play here. That'll be my hint. Carlton Douglas Riddenhauer. Carlton Douglas Riddenhauer. And what was funny was, part of the reason I picked this was because in the trivia game that we played this weekend, they listed off all the members of the band that are the members of this group, and nobody of the four people knew the name of the group, which was crazy to me because once you hear the names of the at least two of the people that were in this group, you'll be like, yeah, of course. But also we were listening, or I was at least listening in the car with my kid to this band earlier that day, but they just hadn't put the two things together.
Okay, so you keep saying band or group, so
it's a group. It's a hip hop group.
Okay.
Again, same era that we're talking about.
Carlton
as Run DMC,
Douglas,
Carlton Douglas,
Rittenhauer,
Carlton.
So we got CDR.
Yeah, the Rittenhauer's not in there at all. It's really just like that, like
Carlton Douglas.
Yeah, it's like a little nickname for. Well, it's not really a nickname for Carlton. It's a nickname for something else. But I guess he just went with that because Carlton's like that's like the whack dude on Fresh Prince. You know, like
Carlton. What's a nickname for Carl? Carlton.
Yeah.
Douglas. There was a lot of initials. Going on.
There's a little bit of an initial work on in here, but there's a name. It's like a nickname with an initial.
Doug. My brain keeps wanting to say Dougie Fresh again, and I already know that's wrong. All right.
Yeah, there's no Doug.
I'm not. I need another hint.
All right. So I'm going to do something interesting here, and I'll give you another name that is connected to this person, and maybe we can kind of do a little bundle here.
A bundle, okay.
So the other name, or my next name, is William Drayton. William Drayton, you're not going to get any clues there. It's not in his name at all. But the two of them met when they were going to school. They were at a Delphi University in New York, on the outskirts of New York on Long Island.
Okay, that helps. So it's a New York group.
So Carlton was studying graphic design, and William, I think, was he was studying to be like a chef. Like he was going to like culinary school or something like that. Carlton ultimately got like his doctorate. Like he is a elevated dude. Yeah.
Okay. So
smart guy, like empowered, like, yeah.
So I am 92% sure that you're talking about Public Enemy.
Boom.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And the stupid culinary school thing, because I remember something about, like, isn't that why Flava Flav is called Flava Flav?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Flavor. I remember hearing. Okay, so it's Chuck D. I don't even remember what you said for the other name.
William Drayton.
Flava Flav is William Drayton. William Jonathan Drayton Jr.
Mm-hmm.
A hype man, he is known especially for his yells of "Yeah, boy!"
Yeah.
So let me see if that. Hold on.
Chuck D, man.
Chuck D.
Yeah, we threw on it was just my daughter and me in the car for a little bit, and so I was just having fun, and I threw on. She didn't care, and so I threw on Public Enemy, and then we went to pick up some of my family members, my wife's family members, and it was just on, and we were like, okay, yeah, we're gonna fight the power. We're all just gonna fight the power until this song ends.
Okay, so I can't find if the reason why his name is Flava Flav is because of anything prior, but I am the association I think is coming from he actually opened like either a restaurant or a chain of fried chicken places.
Yeah.
So that might have been the association for me.
I know he had some sort of culinary schooling of some sort or something. Yeah.
Why is Flava Flav named? Stage name Flava Flav was originally his graffiti tag. Okay. So
okay. Well, maybe yeah.
Well, somehow it somehow the culinary school thing made the association for me, and it all came
I love it.
together.
All right, sweet.
So
Well, let's
that's a
say
twofer.
yeah, it's a twofer. You want to do because I feel like we were down to maybe like 10, 15 on the Chuck, but then we got
At
there
least.
with a little extra hint with the
just
Flavor
one.
Flav. So what do
I
we
lost
say?
count with the Chuck D hints.
Yeah, so I'm like,
you give me 10 or 15?
You're at 20. Let's say we were at 10 for Chuck, but 20. So that's 30 plus the 20 puts you at 50.
So I think,
Wait, is that right?
So I can't win.
No.
I'm still going to go for, I'm still going to do my best.
Yeah.
Get,
and so
I can get 75 at this point.
So I then tried to tether, we're going to jump to the other coast. Okay. I'm going to try to give you a nice hint on this one. So for the last one, we're going to jump coasts, and saying in a similar genre, but there is a connection to one of the people that we just talked about with this artist, but I think it's later on. I know it's later on. I don't think that they did anything before recent times. The last person is Louis Freeze. Freese. Louis Freeze.
That sounds familiar.
Louis Freeze. He is also, he's going to come up. He was on the second Transplants album. He's featured on like so many different things. He just bubbles up in different places.
Yeah, that's dope.
As an MC. But yeah, he's worked in a group with Chuck D and DJ Lord.
I don't have any idea.
All right. So then the next hint is the remainder of the group, in addition to this person, Chuck D and DJ Lord, are Tom Morello and Brad Wilk. So it's
I was gonna. Is it Zach De La Rocha?
No, because
it's Be Real.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, Prophets of Rage.
Yeah, I was getting there because I kind of want, but it's like no, Zach, no. So it's Be Real. Awesome.
Prophets of Rage. Yeah.
Prophets of Rage.
Cool, man. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Was Chuck D? Chuck D was part of that. It was Chuck D.
Yeah. It was Chuck D, DJ Lord, and Be Real, and then Tom and Brad.
3 chords. Oh, okay.
And actually, I think Tim. I think it might have been actually All of Rage.
Yeah, they're a package deal.
Yeah, I think it was All of Rage plus Public Enemy and Be Real, which is insane to think of. Yeah, it's crazy to think that group exists.
That's it. So that's a super group.
That is a super group.
Man, you know what?
We didn't talk about Mr. Bungle at all. That is also basically a super group. We'll get into that again. Yeah, but yeah.
We'll have to do a follow-up supergroup episode because there's so many and we wouldn't have had time anyway, but we've like come across or remembered so many others since that episode. It deserves a part deux.
Yeah.
But I love Cypress Hill. Like, holy moly, do I love Cypress Hill.
Yeah. He's great. Send Dog's amazing. Like that group is just so solid.
They're so unique.
Yeah.
It was, oh man, great album.
So let's hit a couple news and history things and then we'll flip it on over.
Yeah. Did you have any modern or recent news to touch on?
Yeah. Well, so talked about Kanye a bit too much. Maybe won't talk about too much longer, although I do want to do a deep dive on him at some point. But
you'll have to expand my mind on Kanye.
He announced that he's got, I think basically out of the music that he was making that was Donda, he has enough that he made that he's excited about, and he planned it as a second album. And there's this Donda 2, but it won't be on any streaming services. We talked about, the drama with Spotify and whatever, and he's just saying like, if you want this art, you need to buy the
His
vehicle.
player. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to buy his piece of tech to experience this work of art. Which again, there's part of me that's like, ego comes hand in hand with music, and one often doesn't exist without the other, or art for that matter. And so I can't turn my back on it, because I'm like, he's got to live his truth, he's got to do his thing. But at the same time, like, it is like, people people talk about how cost prohibitive and gatekeepy even like the CD or retail music world was. We've touched on that, where it's like, you went into this record store with $20 and maybe you walked out with a couple singles and an LP or something back in the day, as opposed to now where everything's at your fingertips and you don't need money to be able to engage with art. But he is offering, or there was a one-time IMAX live stream where if you wanted to experience it one time, you could see it there. Dude, sometimes
it's in IMAX. It's not even like an online thing.
I think you could stream it online as well, but yeah, it was like you had to buy tickets to see it in IMAX. Like, it's like that. Yeah. I can see this being pressed on some sort of super swanky vinyl and being sold for like $100 at some point in a year or two. Like, he's going to put out some box set. He's going to put out a $500 box set that'll have this on it for the first time ever, or whatever it is, So stay tuned.
If you're going to do that, you might as well go full Wu-Tang Clan and only release this single album
and sell it to the farmer record. Bro. Yeah, right.
Oh, we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah. And then the other one that's just exciting, again, like you had mentioned, artists that all of a sudden you start hearing rumblings of new music about, is Sigur Rós. It looks like we're going to get a new Sigur Rós album. It's been almost 10 years. I love that sort of ethereal Icelandic music, and I could go for some more. They've been active. It's not like they've been completely dormant. They did some orchestral stuff and things here or there, some soundtracks, but I think a proper album is in the works for this year, and that would be very exciting.
I'm here for it. Definitely here for it. So as far as music history goes, got a couple of quick things here. So February 28th, 1977, I didn't know this story, but Ray Charles, who we talked about,
we did
Ray last episode when I, for some reason, went with Jamie Foxx for our one of my.
It was a genius
for the
move.
Game.
Yeah,
I wasn't trying to stump you. I thought it'd be
wholly legitimate. No, it was a fair move.
But the real Ray Charles was attacked on stage by a man who tried to strangle him with a microphone cord.
So crazy.
The man was a member of a group called Project Heavy, a community program for disadvantaged youths. They promised that the matter would be handled within the organization and no charges were filed. So that's another kind of crazy thing about it.
I feel like I was just reading about something that happened out at, I think it was at a Run DMC show or something like that. There were a lot of things that happened at concerts that just kind of got swept away, that, charges weren't pressed, or it was chalked up to gang violence or whatever it was. Like it was explained away, and things kind of got, I mean, Altamont even, there's so many weird things that happened back in music history that now when things like that happen, like Astroworld,
people would have been arrested,
rightfully so. Yeah. Like,
or it's national news.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Man, I haven't thought about Astroworld in a while. I need to see if there's anything still going on with that, or if that just got forgotten about.
Yeah.
Is there still an ongoing investigation?
Well, not to bring it back to Kanye, but he got in a fight with another young white woman recently, who had barely made any sort of a comment that you could even connect back to Astroworld. She stopped her concert because something was going on.
Billie Eilish,
and
right?
And she said something innocuous like, this is what you should do when something's happening, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then Kanye's like, yeah, I'm not playing Coachella unless she apologizes. Like, Who are you?
A baby.
Sorry for the Kanye moment. Go
no,
on.
it's part of music history now. So
it really is. Yeah.
so, and then February 28th, 1986, George Michael announced that Wham was over and done with. Wham became one of the most successful pop acts of the 80s, selling more than 30 million records worldwide, with top 100 singles, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Everything She Wants, and Careless Whisper. But they were effectively kaput as far as February 28th, from February 28th, 1986.
Now, the weird thing, again, this trivia game, I got stumped because the question that they collectively decided on for me was, what was the name of George Michael's first number one hit, which I did not know. And apparently Careless Whisper is a George Michael song and not a Wham song. I thought that it was a Wham song, but is apparently a George Michael single. Yeah.
I thought it was a Wham song.
I thought so too. It's apparently
Hold on.
Yeah.
I object.
Eh?
Careless Whisper is a song by George Michael, okay?
Oh no, this
it was written by Michael and was released on July 24th on the Wham album. Yeah, it's a Wham song.
It's a Wham song.
Oh, but then right below that, they have a picture of the 7-inch single, and it says George Michael on it.
This is so weird. Maybe he re-released it.
Okay, artwork for the UK 7-inch single. So, like, in the UK, it was released under George Michael. And then in the United States, it was released as Wham featuring George Michael.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it depends on where in the world you were at the time.
Yeah.
That's wild. There's the real trivia comes when somebody objects.
Yeah, I just kind of put my hands up because I was like, I don't know. We're all sitting around the kitchen table, but yeah, I probably should have pushed back.
So the truth is,
it's probably a Wham song, and that
it's both.
$5 trivia question is a liar.
So it's both. The answer is it's both.
Yeah.
So it's Wham featuring George Michael in the United States.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Anywho, we got some important birthdays this week. February 25th, 1943, we have George Harrison, who needs no further introduction. The Quiet Beatle. Right. Rest in peace, sir. February 26th, 1928, Fats Domino, otherwise known as Antoine Domino, singer, piano player, band leader, songwriter. Without Fats Domino, there's no... We miss out on a lot of music in the mid-century. February 26, 1932, Johnny Cash, the Man in Black himself, is born. And he would have been 90 last year. February 26, 1953, The Voice himself, Michael Bolton.
Yeah.
The hair as well.
The hair.
There was a big to-do when he cut his hair.
Right.
It was like the Metallica situation, but for like middle-aged white women.
Yeah, I feel like he came around. I feel like he had a moment where he came across as like the grumpy guy, and then he kind of went full Goldblum on himself, where he's like, "No, I know, I know what's going on here." He did that Lonely Island song.
Yeah,
like I think he got it, where he was just like, "This is me. I can be this. I don't need to be like Frank Sinatra. I can just be an amazing celebrity that people are excited to see."
There you go.
Yeah.
You got it. If you can't, at some point, become the meme.
Yeah.
Then you're a square.
Yeah.
February 26, 1968. Tim Comerford, bassist with Rage Against the Machine, we just talked about.
And Prophets of Rage.
And Prophets of Rage and Audio Slave. And yeah, I mean, again, Tom Morello, Tim Comerford, and blank other dude. Sorry.
Brad Wilk.
Amazing drummer. Amazing bass player. Amazing.
Very good climber. I think he was the one that climbed.
Great free climber, too.
Yeah.
February 26, 1971, Erykah Badu, who I was a big fan of in the late 90s, early aughts. R&B soul singer. She did a lot of work with the Roots, right?
Yep. And Baby Mama singer. For Andre 3000.
Andre 3000.
They have a kid together. Yep.
And I even kind of paused and thought maybe I shouldn't put this on here yet because I didn't know what order we were going to do the game today. But February 27th, 1971, Rosanda Thomas, better known as Chili of TLC, who needs no introduction if you were alive at all in the 90s. But yeah, she was born February 27th, 1971. Happy birthday.
My record store has Funko Pops of Chili and T-Boz.
No
Lisa Left Eye Lopez.
No Left Eye?
It makes me think I got to hunt down Lisa Left Eye Lopez because
they made one. They just didn't have it.
I'm assuming so. Yeah, I think they just didn't have it, so it makes me want it even more.
See, Left Eye was my favorite. That was my girl.
Me too. Yeah.
So anyway, rest in peace, Left Eye.
Yep.
February 27th, 1981, Josh Groban, your mom's favorite crooner.
Another guy who's got a good sense of humor. Yeah.
Yeah.
He also,
The meme, you got to become the meme. It has to happen.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age. You got to go meta.
For sure.
Got to go meta. February 28th, 1957, Cindy Wilson, singer and founding member of the B-52s.
Mm-hmm.
Love the B-52s so much. February 28th, 1971, English record producer, engineer, and musician Nigel Godrich, best known for his work with Radiohead, essentially an extra Radiohead member. The Sixth Beatle. Yeah. And also with Atoms for Peace. Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, February 28th, 1942. This was a new piece of trivia for me. Is the birth date of English musician Brian Jones, best known as the founder and original leader of the Rolling Stones. Wow. And when Brian Jones developed alcohol and drug problems, he became increasingly unreliable, and the Stones dismissed him in June 1969. And then, running with this ongoing theme, died on July 3rd, 1969, drowning in his own swimming pool.
Stay out of the water, rock stars. Don't do it. Don't go in the water.
Stay out of the water.
It's so dangerous.
So dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, we kept it under an hour for our side A. I'm impressed. We did good.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back after flipping it over. And on side B, Liam is going to
talk a little Rancid. Yeah. Little Rancid, little East Bay punk scene.
The East Bay sound.
Yeah, let's pop over there.
Let's do it. We are back on side B of our 18th episode of Retro Groove. Gonna get into some of the history and the artists surrounding the East Bay punk scene. And so this is an area where, I know of a number of these bands. I know some of the catalog of some of these bands, but I'm not super familiar with how they all kind of connect and the history around the formation of this group of artists. So I guess to start the conversation off, I'll ask you, Liam, what was kind of your first introduction to any of these groups, and then starting to go down that rabbit hole and make those connections to the other artists.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably Green Day. It had to be Green Day. Like, they were the band that when I was in high school, or even middle school at that point, like my little garage band, I took my dad's guitar and someone grabbed drums and we just figured it out and we played songs off of Dookie because you could,
they
like
were
it was
easy to
four
play.
chords. It was 4 chords and a slack jawed kind of pop song. And it was so cool to be able to do something that sounded like what was on the record, and you had that kind of rebellious nature, but it was pop. They definitely had that pop swagger. And then I remember hearing Rancid a few years later. I was on a ska kick for sure. I mean,
as we all were at that time.
Yeah. It's funny because I never got into Real Big Fish or Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. There's so many different types of like the ska, dance hall, punk kind of vibe. You had your big bandy kind of guys. Boss Tones always felt to me very very big band. It was influenced by like the swing side of the brass section and not as much of the reggae dance hall stuff.
Right.
I liked the ones that there was a band called RX Bandits. There was another one called Catch 22 out of Jersey. There were a bunch of ska bands that I got into because they had a little bit more of that dance hall kind of thing to them. I was going to CBGB's to see this band Pilfers, which was this like New York ska band that was out on Mojo Records. And fun, crazy fact here is I was so thirsty for ska music that I was searching around on the internet and found like a GeoCities for this ska band.
GeoCities.
Ska band out of Florida called the Blinking Underdogs, and they had like 3 or 4 songs that you could listen to on their website. You couldn't even buy a CD or whatever, but like you could email them because it was a GeoCities. You could send an email.
Right.
I email the band. The dude hits me back. The lead singer hits me back. He sends me a bunch of songs. We strike up like an email conversation, whatever. He's going to Juilliard in the spring, and I'm like living in the city area. We talk about meeting up. He's going to give me some more music.
That's nuts.
We never actually meet up, dude, but just wait for this. This is going to be the craziest thing you've ever heard of. I'm telling you, because you're going to go after we do this, you're going to go on a crazy Google rabbit hole. So I stay in touch with the guy throughout. We never really meet up, but he sends me like everything the band ever recorded, which is like 20 something songs. I have a burned CD of it that I listen to in my car, whatever. The guy winds up going to Juilliard, studying acting and dropping the music side of it. It was Oscar Isaac from Star Wars, from Inside Llewyn Davis.
What?
From Dune. I legitimately, in high school, was emailing with a high school and college aged Oscar Isaac, who then goes on to be
GeoCities pen pals with Poe Dameron.
Yeah, and I got to see him and finally met him in person about 4 or 5 years ago.
Holy crap.
And like, I didn't know how to present myself. And I was just like, hey, dude, I don't know if you remember the name like Liam or whatever. And he was like, holy shit. And he freaked out. Dude, it was such a cool moment for him to be like, awesome. Oh my God, you were the kid. You were the one kid who emailed me about my music back in the day.
That's amazing.
Craziest thing. So anyway, so that is all to say, I was definitely in a ska place, right? And Rancid had this, like, it had this perfect amalgam of like,
Yeah.
I was ready to rebel, but it wasn't just hardcore like thrash punk or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was so listenable.
It was. It was something you could listen to and you were not afraid of your mom coming in the room and hearing it.
Yeah. Like it didn't get turned off. Like my parents would let me listen to that in the car. It's crazy. So it made me a fan that kind of carried throughout. To this day, like I still go back, I listen to a bunch of it. They've put out a bunch of other albums, and Tim's done so many other things I'd like to go into.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of want to start this sort of like, did you mentioned that you had like your own kind of local scene?
Yeah.
When you look at what was going on in Berkeley and more so in San Francisco, but like because San Francisco was what it was, Berkeley became this hub, like we were saying that the Seattle area was, that just attracted people who maybe couldn't afford or be in the San Francisco area, but also could be amongst the UC Berkeley crew, which was a very progressive liberal area because of the college, and they kind of just let that community be what it is. And it was kind of like what you equate Portland to now, where it's this like this world of free thinkers. And then you had like the Dead Kennedys that start kind of blowing up out there. And a lot of the punk that we know, the early punk, we talked about Joe Strummer and the Clash, like those were all influenced by reggae and dance hall. And all of that stuff started coming over the ocean, and it landed amongst other places. It heavily landed in Berkeley. It just, it struck a chord because you had this unique blend of artists who had the ability to do what they were doing. And what wound up happening is you had metal bands that were playing with ska bands, that were playing with punk bands, that were playing with like doo-woppy throwback kind of bands, and each of them was feeding off each other. Yeah. So like you look at a Mr. Bungle, which when you think about that group, you're like, how is it even possible that people who would go on to play in or were currently playing in Anthrax or Slayer, I think, right? Like it, or it's Slayer.
I can never
Slayer,
keep track of all the Mr.
Slayer,
Bungle.
Anthrax, and then obviously Faith No More.
Yeah.
Like how all of those guys get together and they make like this crazy set of albums with music that's just in every genre, and it's because they were challenging each other. They were playing each other's music. They were exposed to so much that they wanted to expand it. They didn't just want to put out a metal record.
Right.
Did you feel like you had that kind of thing in your like local community? Because I think that you see that, right? Like we were playing in basements. It was whatever. We were just playing stupid punk songs or whatever. But like we would learn each other's songs and play off of that. And it never grew in the little suburb town that I was in.
Right.
But like I went to some shows at like a VFW hall or a church basement, and it was kind of cool to see all these different bands that were just kind of that like you trying to make a scene, trying to create a safe space where there was a community for all that kind of stuff.
Well, plus back then, and even, when I was in a small community like that, this would have been the late 90s, there was nothing else to do. There wasn't really, the internet was in its like absolute infancy. And, I still remember like making the website for our band with just like literally typing out the raw HTML code. I mean, this was the very early stages of the internet. And so, but like no one had cell phones. We certainly weren't anywhere close to having smartphones. So, there was, and especially in the area that I lived in, there wasn't really a whole lot to do, particularly if you were young and broke. So the big event that week would be, Friday night at whatever it was, the VFW hall or the juice bar or whatever the location was.
Yeah, who would let you play?
Yeah,
right.
and all your friends were there.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And you had the time and the lack of responsibilities to just be bored and allow that to flourish your creative potential.
Yeah.
And then the whole riffing off of each other thing takes it to a whole nother level, because then you have to push yourself because, okay, we're gonna riff on this band, but they don't play the same style of music, so you have to completely change what you're doing. So I can definitely see, especially when you kind of upscale it to a larger city with more people and more influences and a more diverse demographic, it's gonna explode even more.
Yeah. And so you have that fostered in a very special way in the Berkeley, San Francisco area. You have this kind of co-op that's put together by a handful of people who kind of have their heads on right. They've been orchestrating these zines and these radio shows and stuff to really
zines.
really lay the groundwork for a community, like to foster that. Like you need these people who build the cornerstones. And they open up this place called 924 Gilman Street. And it was an art co-op that was no drinking, no fighting, no bias, no homophobia or sexism, whatever. It was a co-op that kids could come to and jam and do art and whatnot. And it attracted everybody to there. And they said like the first couple of months of it were a little sleepy until you had that hit that all of a sudden the thing started to align and you had all of these different bands going in, and you would have a thrash punk band opening for a ska band that was then closed out by a metal band or whatever. And it really started, it inspired people in the local area, but you had artists that had kind of scattered to the wind. Tim, specifically Armstrong, had gone to New York and was just like messing around there trying to figure out what he was going to do musically. And then he finds out that they're opening this thing, and he goes back there. He helps build it. He winds up like cleaning up afterwards. Like he spends his time as like a sweeper and a cleaner for the shows afterwards, just so he can spend more time in the place.
Yeah.
And this is the place where you look it up. It's like, this is where Operation Ivy was born. You had Rancid and Green Day and AFI and Jawbreaker. Like they all kind of came out of this place. Wow. And then you have all these other bands that just played through there, all these metal bands that were coming up at the time. I mean, Kirk Hammett from Metallica was in Exodus, and they were playing there at that time.
Wow.
So you have this like the groundwork for something really special. And I think that for better or for worse, you're bound to then have something cool come out of it, right? And what rises to the top, you can't really predict. And so what you start to see out of this scene is sort of a diverse group that's kind of holding on to what their strength is out of all of this. And so Green Day is probably inarguably the biggest of the whole crew, right? Like they're one of the biggest pop punk, pop rock bands of the past 20 years. And you see it in early days where like they just have this swagger and this attitude, and they soak it all up, but they can put a pop spin on it. And they just bottled what that place created, and we're able to sell it like Coca-Cola, basically. You know, like they just figured
100%.
out the formula. But most people of our age, at least, will remember that back then the term sellout was still a thing. And they signed to Reprise. They signed to a major label. They were on Lookout. Lookout was a label that was created by one of the founders of Gilman Street. So it was like they were in this neighborhood indie pocket for their first 2 albums, and then they got into this bidding war. There was this fever over trying to sign these bands. And so they sold, they put out Dookie on Reprise. You also had, AFI went to DreamWorks. You had Jawbreaker that went to UMG. They were on a label, David Geffen label, and Bad Religion, who are technically they're an LA band, but they played there a bunch. Bad Religion signed to Atlantic. Stranger Than Fiction, which is like their iconic album.
Yeah, that was their
put
biggest.
out on Atlantic. That was put out on Atlantic Records. Like all of these bands went to majors. So, like, you then have Rancid, who is formed from the like hard rock punk, like the hardcore punk, but you can hear there's dance hall stuff in the Op Ivy tunes. Tim and Matt, who are still in Rancid today, they leave Operation Ivy and they form a group called Dance Hall Crashers. I had never heard of Dance Hall Crashers. This is how it's really going to come around now. So on Blink-182's Dude Ranch, there's a song called Josie. And I'm blanking on the lady who is the actress who is in that, and I'm going to think of it in a second, but the music video is great. You should watch it. But in the song Josie, Mark Hoppus says, "My girlfriend likes UL and DHC." And I remember in pre-internet, I heard that and I'm like, well, I want to like that. Who's that?
What is
that? Like, how do I figure this out? And then you just start asking people. And I found out at a punk show that it was Unwritten Law and Dance Hall Crashers. And so I went out and I started buying Unwritten Law and Dance Hall Crashers stuff. Dance Hall Crashers, the stuff that I know is post Tim and Matt. So basically what happens is Operation Ivy falls apart. Tim and Matt create a new group that is going to be more focused on the like dance hall ska side of things. They create something called Dance Hall Crashers. They're in that band for like 6 months. And then they bounce from that. And that band continues on without them and signs a major label deal and goes on. Dude, they played at Lilith Fair. Like that band went on and had some like legit success. It was great. So Tim and Matt are spinning off. Tim's got substance abuse problems and stuff. And so Matt is seeing this and like, we got to figure something out here.
Yeah.
They decide to form a new band that's going to be a true amalgam of the two sounds that they've been toying with. And that's how Rancid's born. The legend has it that they actually initially, when they were kind of playing around with this, approached Billy Joe Armstrong, not related to Tim Armstrong, but approached Billy Joe Armstrong about being the other guitarist in the band, and he passed on it. So Lars Fredriksson is the other like long-standing member of the group. And yeah, like they went on to put out some incredible records from there. The biggest or the most notable was probably their third album, which is called And Out Came the Wolves.
Yep.
And Out Came the Wolves has Ruby Soho and Roots Radical and Time Bomb, which were all big MTV songs.
Yeah.
But again, so this band has sold over 4 million records and has never been on a major label before. They initially are signed to Lookout through Operation Ivy's on Lookout, just like Green Day was. And then they signed to Epitaph, which is Brett from Bad Religion's indie label, right? Now, we all know Epitaph. Epitaph has gone on to put out some of the best punk albums, and they have an anti-imprint that puts out amazing folk and indie rock and alt country albums. But so they're on Epitaph, which is Brett from Bad Religion, who has since signed with Warner Brothers, right? So like the guy whose band is putting out major label releases has his own record label that is putting out the Rancid albums. And Rancid gets so popular that they are being just hounded and inundated with labels trying to scout them and trying to sign them.
Oh, I
And
bet.
that's why the album's called "And Out Came the Wolves." It's a quote from something else, but like it was all about the fact that like they had found success, they had figured out a sound, they were doing really well, they were making a bunch of money, and then suddenly everybody wanted all up on them.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You didn't care about Op Ivy, and you didn't care about DHC. We're going to do this ourselves. Too bad."
Yeah.
And then by the fourth album, because they can.
Yep.
And then by the fourth album, they're so successful that he works out an imprint on Epitaph called Hellcat. And so every subsequent Rancid release has been put out on Hellcat since. So just like stellar run if that was just what he had done, right? If it was just that and nothing else. But then you get into like the guy doesn't sleep. He's always got his mind churning.
Wow.
He's one of those people that I probably would be like him, Mike Ness from Social D, Toby from H2O. Like there's a bunch of these punk guys who like it's the real deal, and you probably wouldn't want to get in a fight with them.
Right.
You probably wouldn't want to like bump into them at the wrong time. I admittedly have bumped into Tim Armstrong at an event once, and I didn't know it was him. I thought he was like a homeless person. Like I was like, I talked to him and it was fine, and they walked away, and someone was like, "Do you know who that was?" I was like, "No, what's that?" It's Tim Armstrong.
And you're like kicking yourself.
I mean, gigantic beard and just full
he's got a big
tattoo,
beard now.
But he's bald. But like the what
tattoo.
It takes to get, oh my god, dude! Like the amount of pain and time to get a full head tattoo is just,
oh my god,
woo, that's the real deal. So yeah, so Tim does the Rancid thing. He does some solo stuff here and there. As he's writing solo stuff, he grabs one of his roadies and is just like bouncing ideas off of him, and they form this like side project. And Tim pulls in his friend Travis Barker from Blink-182, and they create the Transplants, which kind of starts to fuse hip hop into, because he can't pull the hip hop sound. He's making beats on Pro Tools. He's experimenting with sounds beyond what he can do with Rancid, and he wants to find another outlet for it. And so they've got the Transplants go on, you know, as they're doing their individual projects, they go on to put out like 3 albums and an EP, I think, so far. And they every couple of years they come back together. And then, so, you know, the amount of songs on a Rancid album, it can be 19, 20, 25, because some of them are like 2 minutes long.
Yeah, they're
right?
punk songs.
Yeah. So what they wind up doing is recording and working on a ton of these songs, just like everybody else, and then kind of trimming it down to the last 19 or 20. And off of the 2003 album, there's a song called Trouble that Tim writes, and it gets cut from that. And then he gets brought on to work with Pink, the singer, on her album Try This. And he co-produces that with like L.A. Reid and a bunch of other people. And he co-writes on that album. I want to say this is like 2004, sometime around 2004. He co-writes and he gives her this song. He's like, "Look, I wrote this for Rancid. It's not on the album. Tell me what you think." And she loves it. They work together to rework it so that it's a Pink song.
Yeah.
And she records it and she wins a Grammy.
Oh my god.
So the guy wins
of course
his first Grammy.
Man.
Yeah. Like how Rancid permeates into pop culture beyond all of this. So there's a song Trouble. So he writes a Grammy Award winning song for Pink. And then he you know, there's Rancid projects in between that he toys around with. They're definitely a band where, you know, there's been 5-6 year gaps between albums, which can get frustrating, but then there's plenty of other things going on. In 2006, he kind of produces and narrates this oddball black comedy that I've only ever seen parts of it. I've never seen the full thing. But it's a marionette, like a puppet movie, a movie of puppets about the Charles Manson killings.
What?
And it features voice acting from his friends like Kelly Osbourne, the guys from Green Day, the guys from Good Charlotte, the guys from AFI, Travis Barker.
What?
So like when you watch this movie, there's all these marionette puppets, all voiced by pop punk, ska punk legends. It's the weirdest thing,
nuts.
dude. Yeah. And then so he puts out on Hellcat. He puts out some Dropkick Murphys albums, which I loved. He puts out some Joe Strummer albums, which he said like what an incredible thing to be able to do, to work with one of your idols and have that kind of come full circle. And then another way that he gets to do that is in 2011, 2012, he works with reggae icon Jimmy Cliff on his sort of like resurgence comeback album called Rebirth. Yeah. And so there's an EP that Jimmy puts out initially, and Jimmy covers Ruby Soho on that EP, which is really cool. So he covers a Rancid song, and then Tim produces Jimmy's album, which then goes on to win the Grammy for the best reggae album of the year, meaning that Tim has 2 Grammys.
Another Grammy.
It's so crazy.
Wow, that's wild.
And then he puts out my personal favorite Rancid album called Let the Dominoes Fall. Their drummer leaves the band, and the drummer for the Used, this like emo hardcore rock band, The Used, joins up with the band and is still their drummer to this day. And then in like 2012, 2013, there's another like pause in the Rancid flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decides that he's going to put out a song a day for an entire year. And so if you go on YouTube and whatever, from like October-ish, I think 2012 to 2013 or 2013 to 2014, something like that, he starts just churning stuff out. Every day there's a new song that he's putting up, and he just puts his nose down, and hits or misses. When you're doing a song a day, you're going to have some wins and losses, but it was a cool experiment. The guy is prolific.
Yeah.
And again, like you could go into Green Day as its own subject of what they were able to take from that scene and curate and craft into their initial success, and then the sort of resurgent success they had after that. I love AFI. AFI had this kind of Danzig, dark kind of synthy thing going on to their punk music. Tim produced their first album back in like 95. I love Jawbreaker. Jawbreaker was its own emo thing, right? Like they were really the first quote unquote emo band. They were like, they're not the first emo band, but they were one of the first bands that were labeled emo. And just to see each of those bands that I just mentioned are completely different. You can tell that they all came from this scene that fostered a punk spirit that gave them the ability to grow and go in their own way. But the fact that they all come from the same pedigree is incredible. And again, I grew up going to CBGBs a fair amount. Like it had already kind of had its heyday, and it was just another club in the city. But it definitely still had the spirit. And I never had a Gilman Street. I wasn't fortunate enough, because I don't think most places do. But I can appreciate what it is, and I wonder if that can happen again. Like I feel like it's just the internet now, and that's just what it is. Like
I
people
think
jamming on the internet.
Exactly. And I think that whole geographical melting pot thing is probably a thing of the past, at least as far as on that scale.
Yeah. But I think you have your own melting pots now, so who knows what comes out of this new fostered thing. It does give me some kind of excitement for, as we talk about people being exposed to more by, streaming services and whatever, and TikTok, and seeing the good and the bad of it all. Like, if that Berkeley scene created this amazing diversity of rock bands and kind of redefined rock in 3 or 4 different subsects or directions of punk and emo and whatever, then maybe that happens with this sort of stuff. Maybe a song trends on TikTok and just sparks an interest. There's a couple bands now that are putting out records, and these, I don't want to call them kids, but these like young people, these youngs, they're like these youths are like 20, 21, and they sound like Sonic Youth, dude. And I'm like, how do you know this music? And they like go down these rabbit holes that we've been talking about here. They go down their own rabbit holes, and then they find other like-minded kids in their neighborhood who also went down those TikTok rabbit holes, and then they're like, we can do this. And now they're like bands like that are just touring out there and getting signed. The number of bands that I'm working with now who the band members are 20, 21, 20, it's so cool to hear those sounds coming out of kids that like weren't born when that music was being made, and that's all because of what's happening on the internet right now. So
that's true. And
cool.
that is the upside to it. I mean, you certainly found a positive aspect to the whole TikTok thing, which is hard to do, but
can be.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You can definitely have melting pots, but I think it's probably harder just with the very nature of the internet. The whole part of the reason why a melting pot is what it is because of the geographical restrictions, and the internet completely does away with that. But at the same time, you're right. It does allow you to locate and connect with like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
And you can collaborate that way rather than kind of being forced to just stick with the inner area geographically where you physically are. So, I can see there's pros and cons either way. And I'm always excited to see what people come up with and what new kind of reimaginings of certain genres can spring forth. And yeah, I mean, I love Sonic Youth. I was a huge Sonic Youth fan back in the 90s. And if there's a new Sonic Youth on the way, I'm definitely here for it.
Yeah.
So,
or a new Mr. Bungle.
Everyone
really should go listen.
Mr. Bungle. We didn't get to talk about them too much.
Everyone should go listen to Carousel by Mr. Bungle. Man. If not just for the very end of it, there's a sample of music from Namco's RBI Baseball. Yeah, they just use this funny little 3-second audio thing, and it just hits you. I had to go look it up because I was like, I know that.
I've heard.
I know what that is. And if I had heard that back when it was initially released, it would have driven me crazy.
Well, yeah, because you can't just look it up.
Any NES. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the East Bay. That's my take on the East Bay. Obviously, it's not going to be comprehensive or anything.
It's the abridged version.
Yeah, that's just an appreciation for Rancid and for everything that Tim's done and his incredible career, and then that scene and pocket scenes like that kind of popped up all around the country. Well,
something that I'm interested in now in doing. I know we kind of decided on our topic this week. Kind of a lot later than usual. So I didn't get to do as much research as I like to do. But what I did find is there was a documentary put out back in 2017 called Turn It Around, the story of East Bay Punk. And that looks like something that I'm really going to be looking for. It looks like you can just kind of rent it.
Yeah, you can rent it. Yeah.
Okay.
I watched it a little while back. It Iggy Pop, I think, does a bunch of the narration on it. It's really cool. I mean, the number of people that they hunted down and interviewed for this, it was super comprehensive. And yeah, you get to see Tim with all of his head tattoos and he's menacing and lovely and terrifying and beautiful, and
as it should be.
Yeah, it's all there. Yeah, definitely worth a watch. I think it's pretty long if I remember. I don't.
Yeah, it looks like it's a good solid
2.5
hours.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean,
drop off after like 90 minutes of a doc. I need like a 90-minute doc is good for me.
I made it through Get Back all the way through.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And look, I am a huge Beatles fan, but that was a slog at certain points.
Tough, yeah.
At certain points, like we have to see them play Get Back again.
Again, yeah. You just don't go to the roof. It's not just skip the roof.
So
you don't need the roof.
So the good thing about the punk thing is that the songs are only 90 seconds. So
that's right.
you don't have to.
That's right.
You don't have to worry about that getting repetitive too easily. Yeah. I'm definitely going to, because I had a couple of Rancid albums, Out Come the Wolves being one of them.
Such a good one.
Really, really enjoyed it, and was probably one of the things that kind of catapulted me into the ska thing, which got pretty big in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I was in a ska band for a hot minute. And
really?
Yeah, it was silly, but it was fun. And that was the whole point, is that it was new and fun and
dancing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone's skanking around. Everyone's got a smile on their face.
Yeah.
No one's trying to I mean, there was a little bit of crossover there. There was some moshing going on as well, depending on the intensity of the song being played. But I remember it just being a really, really positive scene. And there was just so much crossover. Like, I remember going to see, it was Reverend Horton Heat. And I know it's more, he's more rockabilly, but the set of people that were there, people with mohawks, people with head tattoos, know what I mean?
People with cowboy boots.
Tim Armstrong might've been there and I wouldn't have even noticed.
Yeah, maybe. You might not have.
This was in Boston, so probably not. But like, I remember at one point, a mosh pit formed, which was not what we were expecting going to, a rockabilly show. But like, I ended up getting knocked over at one point, and some big dude, probably 3 times my size, just like picked me up like I was a child, and like picked me up by my armpits and stood me back up. And I was
amazing. I mean, it's community, man.
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
the thing that everything keeps coming back to is people finding like-minded individuals to feel like they're in a community together. So it's cool. Admittedly, like, it's something I kind of miss. Like, I definitely remember going to ska shows and feeling like I was amongst other people who had the same interests, and just haven't had that feeling in a long time. And hopefully we get to feel that again. At least going back to live shows, you can start to feel that again.
Yeah, got to get back to live shows. I haven't really ventured into that yet. Not
this
yet.
Summer.
We'll get there.
This summer is
hopefully,
gonna be good.
Until Omicron Part 2. I almost went to go see the Beths with Dan. It was very last minute, and because it was like I knew it was coming, but then like life happened, and then Texas Trey messaged us and was like, "Hey, the Beths are playing tonight in Austin. Are y'all going to that?" And we were both like, "Oh my god!" Like, like I'm a pretty impulsive person, but I don't think I can do that last minute, at least not at my age with the responsibilities that I have. But we got some pretty dope shows coming up. So
Fingers crossed.
Community is everything. You're right.
Yeah,
you said it. You said it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Liam. This was dope. Really, really awesome. Cool. It got me kind of, I was a Rancid fan. It's definitely put me in the mood to go back down that rabbit hole. And there's albums, like you mentioned, the Dominoes.
Let the Dominoes Fall is really good.
I've never heard it.
He did. It's like 19 songs. It's full band, and then they did a full acoustic remaking of it. So when you bought it back in the day, it came bundled.
Oh, nice.
With the full album, the full acoustic album, and a DVD. Like, there's so much content from that album, and it's so well done. And you could tell that they were in a good place with their new drummer. It was, I love that album. It's really good.
Well, I've got some homework. I need to listen to that album and watch Turn It Around. And you should too. And I appreciate you, Liam, for taking the lead today and giving my vocal cords a little bit of a rest. And you, listener,
thanks for letting me wax.
Absolutely. And you, listener, thank you for listening to Retro Groove. We're part of the RetroLogic Network. Check out the website, retrologic.games, for social links, merchandise, community, and more. We are also on the Tweety Tweets app, where you can tweet at us and look at the silly things that we like to tweet and retweet and quote tweet and all. I just hopped on. It seems so like it's such a boomer thing. I'm just getting onto the Twitter thing and figuring it out, and I'm really having a lot of fun. But we're on Twitter at retrogroove_pod, and come tweet at us and tell us what you want to hear us talk about.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.